we have done just about everything there is to do in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom between the three of us, mostly me. You are hearing the luscious voice of your host today for this discussion of Tears of the Kingdom here on the CRUBCAST. My name's Kevin, also known as the Golden Bolt, and I'm here with two of my good buddies and co-crubbers, that Trav guy.
I like crow crubbers. I messed that up. Co-crubbers. There we go.
Good. As well as Chris Mykonos fan.
Hi, I also played this game a lot. I'm here too.
So, first things first, before we go into any detail, I want to make it clear to anyone who's watching this, if you haven't seen the title already, this is going to be a spoiler-heavy podcast. We're going to probably talk general impressions here first and foremost, and then we're going to get into the weeds by the end, I'm sure. So if you don't know certain things about the story, about parts of the world, about things that Nintendo themselves weren't even sharing, things that they were good about keeping close to the chest up until pretty much the moment that the game dropped. If you haven't made yourself privy to any of those things and you want to keep it a secret, you should probably tune out. But with that in mind, make sure you subscribe first, please.
Just come back when you've beat it.
Hit that bell.
In like a month or two.
Yeah. So first things first, do you guys know how many hours the Switch says you have on the game? I didn't prep you for this question.
I can check it right now, actually.
No, it's fine.
Okay,
100.
Well,
I played 100 hours.
I'm somewhere.
I'm sure
in the
I'm in triple
range.
digits at this point.
Yeah. So we've all put obviously substantial time into the game. We've all gone through, I think, completely different dungeon orders and completely different side quest experience. So, for example, I have done every side quest in the game. That counts shrine quests, side adventures. I've done functionally the 100% of the game, minus several hundred Koroks and bubble gems. But I have all the armor. I've done it all.
You're the one that makes the title of this not a lie,
yes,
basically.
I'm the not clickbait part of this title.
Which is nice, because I 100%ed Breath of the Wild twice, and I did not want to do it again here, but I'm also coming pretty close.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I never 100%ed Breath of the Wild. I did all the quests, and I did all the armor that you could, up until I think the DLC made it so you couldn't have every armor in your inventory at once. You were like one slot too short.
That's right. I remember that being a point of contention.
Because of the Switch shirt / Wii U shirt and the Xenoblade armor was the reason why for that.
How could you choose between those two? Honestly,
yeah. I think I dropped like the basic Hyrule armor. I dropped just the chest piece or whatever because you can buy it wherever. But yeah, so I've done just about all of it at this point. Chris, what's your general experience and also your takeaway along with that experience?
Gosh, it was weird to play it because every 20 hours I liked the game more than I did the prior 20 hours. It was like a compounding experience, and when I finished it, I immediately went into our little group chat and I was like, I think that's the best game I've ever played. And like, I shouldn't say that right off of playing it. We were always worried about the honeymoon period, but like, I can't think of a game I've played that I've been this immersed in this much ever. Even Breath of the Wild, like I didn't get this into it. I saw everyone else get this into it. And I was like, I respect this a lot and I like this a lot. But I wasn't like thinking about the game when I wasn't away from it every single second of my life like I was with this one. Yeah. So I would say I finally had my Breath of the Wild moment with Tears of the Kingdom, which is great because, oh my god, what a great game. My takeaway is I don't know how they top it this time, but I'm glad I put 100 hours into this and feel like I could do another 100 easily somehow.
Do we want to talk about that like near the end? Like do a little short rapid fire like, oh, where do they go from here?
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
I don't see why not. Okay. Trav, what was your experience with Breath of the Wild? What's your takeaway with the game? All that fun stuff.
With Breath of the Wild?
Tears of the Kingdom. I keep doing that.
Okay. I wanted to make sure, because I was fully prepared to just be like, well, I was late to buying a Switch and I slept at a GameStop, even though they already had Switches and I didn't need to. No, I mean, so I played the hell out of Breath of the Wild. I know, you said Tears of the Kingdom. Context. I played the hell out of it. I basically knew the map like the back of my hand for at least 2 years, and then I forgot it last year. And so coming back to Tears of the Kingdom, because I really did contemplate, should I replay Breath of the Wild again before Tears of the Kingdom, and I decided not to because I feel like I would have burned myself out.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I didn't, because even though I was able to see all of these really on the surface minute changes to the map, it felt familiar, but still totally different. Because I mean, you looked at the screenshots, we even talked about it before the game came out, like, this just looks like Breath of the Wild again. This looks like the same map. I was cautiously optimistic. I didn't have anything to base that off of, that it was going to be different. So I just kind of got lucky there. But it turned into, I'm going to play this game 3 hours a day after I'm done with work as a way to reward myself, and then going, nope, never mind, I just want to play this game. And I'm incredibly behind on my workflow as a result of that, which is a really good sign of how good this game is, because I have not gotten lost in a game quite like this.
Yeah.
I genuinely do not know
when the last time
a game has eaten up this much time for me.
Like, I was genuinely starting to wonder, like, man, am I just getting out of games? Like, I can't remember the last time I sat down and got this lost in something, which I used to be able to do kind of frequently. But this game is like, oh no, okay, I do still, this is still what I do, right? Like, I'm still that into it.
Yeah.
So,
like, I always try to have at least one, I call them Far Cry likes, which is a terrible way to describe them. But these games where you just explore this large open world and do minute tasks and whatever, which Breath of the Wild back then definitely fell into that category for me. Tears of the Kingdom does. So I probably need a better name for that rather than Far Cry, because Far Cry is probably the worst example of that. But I always try to have one of these games going at once. And over the last year, I've had 5 of them, and I don't think I beat a single one. Tears of the Kingdom, I basically just binged all the way through to the end and wanted to cry 5 times during the entire end game. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but by the time there's a certain point in the story where every cutscene was giving me goosebumps. And it was there was just that point where it was I don't care what's going on in my life right now. I want to finish this game. Which, again, I don't think I've had... excuse me. I don't think I've had in my adult life in 6-7 years.
Wow.
It was a magical feeling.
Yeah. I know for me, I was very on the record within our Crub crew. I didn't say this publicly because I don't want to get shot. But...
You can get shot. That's okay. That's not what I meant to say.
You can get shot. That's okay,
Great.
Kevin.
You can get shot. That's okay.
I'll help you.
I was very much... I was of the belief, or of the concern, rather, not the belief, that that Tears of the Kingdom would probably still just be Breath of the Wild 2, and that there's nothing wrong with that, or that it would be like a Mario Galaxy 2 to Breath of the Wild being Mario Galaxy 1, where it's a better game in every way, but that's almost not enough in a weird way. I don't know how to really describe it, but if you've played Mario Galaxy 1 and then played 2, 2 is just more unique in its level design, its creativity. The story gets stepped back a little bit, but it's Mario, who cares? And yet, because we had already seen a lot of that before, and this is just an improvement and an expansion of that, it almost felt like, yeah, that's cool. You didn't really get that same feeling that you get from a Galaxy. And with a game like Breath of the Wild that is so immensely groundbreaking, it felt almost to me that if Tears of the Kingdom was just more Breath of the Wild, that almost wasn't enough, even though I knew I would still enjoy it. And that was a concern of mine. I don't know really how to fully verbalize it even still. But I was wrong. So that's the moral of that story, is that I very quickly, once we got a hold of the powers, when you're in the tutorial area and you start exploring with them, and you kind of see just how different those abilities are, because in Breath of the Wild you had the magnesis where you could grab metal things, you had the freeze things in time and then slam them so they can go flying things, you had
2 different types of bombs,
2 bombs, and then there was, what's the other one?
camera
2.
I don't think there was a 4th.
I thought there was a 4th. I thought there was a 4th one. Shoot, this is how much we've played Breath of the Wild recently. I can't even remember it, but in Tears of the Kingdom,
So Google.
Yeah, let me know what you see. In Tears of the Kingdom, there are 4 new ones of the main ones. There's go through roofs. There's go through every roof, which they had showed off in the pre-release stuff. And that also kind of set me a little weird at first when I heard about it, because I didn't follow a lot of the pre-release stuff as much on this one, because I almost felt like they were saying too much as we got close. What was the 4th one?
The 4th one was Cryonis.
Oh, yeah,
letting you
yeah.
put ice out of the water.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
The thing that you could have just had ice arrows for the whole game. Yeah.
It's true.
I lost my train of thought for a second here, but the pre-release info, I had kind of kept myself away from it, because even though I was like so unimaginably hyped for Breath of the Wild, with Tears of the Kingdom I didn't want to see a lot, because everything they showed I was like, it's just kind of more, and I didn't want to be not hyped for the game. I wanted to just sit and get absorbed into it and feel that feeling I felt 6 years ago. And so anyway, the 4 abilities are the one where you can go through any ceiling as long as there's something above it, the debug one, as they've kind of unveiled that it was. There's now just grab anything instead of just grab metal things. There's
Which also completely replaces the Cryonis, because now you can just lift up the things that you would put it under.
Yes.
Like,
yep.
It's a multi-purpose. And oh my god, sorry, I hate to interrupt you. Did you guys have that feeling early on in the game where it's like, I keep thinking I can only move metal objects when you select the hand?
No, for some reason that didn't click for me.
Oh, I'm stupid, I guess.
But you bring up I'm glad you jumped in there, because the thing is, this is in fact a spoiler cast. We don't need to explain what the powers are, really, and I shouldn't be doing that. But
I was going to
nuclear bombs.
ask, like, what moment was it where it clicked for you then, actually? Because you were talking about how you did have that moment where you're like, oh, okay, like, I'm in it. Because for me, watching you play, we Discord screen shared that first night. Time stop. It was in the opening tutorial island. I was watching Kevin go through, I think it's starting around the snowy parts. You were like looking up at something and you're like, how do I get up there? And you just chop down trees and then like lean them against the
that's
thing,
so cool.
and then just walked up them. And I was like, there might be something to this game, actually, because it's the dumbest thing I've seen, but it totally worked.
That was one of those moments where it's like, oh, they've done Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts right. I think the moment for me was, I can't pinpoint it, but it was somewhere in the depths. And for those that maybe are watching this cold and don't know a lot about Tears of the Kingdom and you just want to hear us talk, the thing that they kept secret when they were showing off all this stuff of, look at how high in the air you can go and look at all these Skyward Sword Island things that are going on. The whole thing that they never really told you, and it should have been obvious in retrospect with how the intro and the original reveal of the game was, is that there's a whole second map underground, and it's the same trope as the Dark World or any of the other things that every other Zelda has done. Except
Minecraft Nether.
Yes, except that it's Minecraft Nether, and that you can't see that far ahead of you, that you have to use like these little light plants to light your way, or you find these actual light roots, as they're called, which are the shrines of the underground essentially, and you activate them and they light up chunks of the area. And
I love that. I love that so much, that you could flip the map either way. It's like, okay, I have a route here, but there's nothing above it. That means there's a shrine over there that I totally missed.
Yeah.
Which makes like I'll let you finish your thoughts. Sorry, I'm excited.
No, it's good.
They wait so long to give you the shrine sensor that I was just fully prepared to play the game without it. And I'm like, okay, I mean, you could see the fucking swirly green shit so high up into the air that makes it so obvious that I'm like, okay, sure, I could just look for these when I jump off of the skydiving towers. But then it's like, oh, okay, there's this whole second area down here. It's pitch black. I could see this like orange heart-looking thing in the distance. That means that there's something over there. Gonna go over there. Now there's a shrine above me that I didn't know I could find. What do you mean it's underground?
Yeah.
Good thing I have bombs.
And so here's something that you said that's really interesting, and we'll get to this in a second. I got the shrine thing pretty early. the shrine sensor. So you can get it late in the game, but that's a testament to how differently we've played the game. But
I had someone else have to tell me how
to jump back though, before we go into like what we did structure wise with the game, the underground, I think, was the moment that I had that magic of Breath of the Wild again, where I was exploring this genuinely breathtaking world, and not in terms of necessarily visuals because it is a Switch game, but in terms of that looking into the distance and saying, oh yeah, I can climb that, I can do that, whatever. Trav, you and I did pretty much everything. I mean, you did everything in Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you had the same revelation that I did, that when you were exploring the depths, when you can't see anything and you're going through this oppressive pitch black environment, and you're...
Edit that out, please.
I will. And now I'm not going to. And you're going through this pitch black environment and you're exploring, and then you spend 3-4 hours down there, and then you look at the overworld map and you're like, holy shit, I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Was there a moment that it clicked for you, like it did for me, that it forced you to actively look at every single piece of the underground, which you then realize you weren't doing with the overworld, and that all the world that you had in Breath of the Wild, even if you did everything, that there were thousands of places that you still hadn't been because you're still going in a line from A to B to C to F to D to E, like everywhere in any order you want to.
Absolutely. The moment for me that kind of clicked for me was, so you go into the depths. There's this quest early on where it's like, oh hey, this old man from the last game is lost underground. You go down there, and I was told beforehand, like, oh yeah, dude, there's this what the fuck was the name of it in the last game? Malice, the purple goo.
It's goo instead of malice.
It was like, there's malice now, and it takes your hearts away, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. So I go down, and then the quest takes me there. Like, he didn't tell me about the depths, the guy that was telling me about the gloom. So we get over there to that hole that you're supposed to jump down. I see these injured NPCs that look like Peter holding his knee, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna jump down there. I got a parachute, I think, and I thought, like, just in that moment, I thought, okay, this is no different from the caves. Because the game has an updated cave system where, like, it actually marks the cave on your map, gives you a check mark if you've done most of the things in it. I think with some of them, it's like only a check mark if you do if you get all the chests, and then the other one, it's the bubble frogs. I don't exactly know. It feels inconsistent. I don't think it's meant to be consistent. But I thought, like, okay, these are just like little mini, not even dungeons, just mini things that are in the ground that's meant to, like, give story. Then you go down. This guy tells you, like, oh yeah, use these bright seeds or whatever that you've been collecting up in the sky world to throw around and find your way. And then as soon as you unlock that first root light thing, and it shows up on the map, it was like, oh, I'm gonna cover every inch of this thing.
Yeah.
Just that moment is like learning, like finding out exactly what you said. Like, there's an entire second map under the main map that, let's be honest, the game doesn't really tell you to explore very often.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And then you find treasure maps in the sky world that tell you, like, hey, there's something way over here.
Yeah.
Like, that's really the only thing that's telling you to explore outside of your own, I was about to say mortality. Yeah. Curiosity.
Yeah. And
it's so
more
good.
More to my point is how it completely recontextualizes the Breath of the Wild map, because like you were saying, the map does have changes, and there's significant changes in the 6 years of in-universe time, give or take, between games. It kind of takes place in real time. There's the same level of gap as we had between games. And they use that to great effect with some cases, because there's a kid in somewhere, I forget which town, maybe Kakariko, that says, like, in Breath of the Wild, he talks about the Sky Kingdom. And then in Tears of the Kingdom, he's like, I told you. And that's just been there this whole time.
That went right over my head.
And, like, it's not even like a related thing to a quest. It's just some kid that you just would talk to in Breath of the Wild. and there's characters like that. There's the return of Terrytown, the town that Link builds in Breath of the Wild, and now it's like this.
Which is
thriving...
also like, am I crazy or is Terrytown higher north this time?
It's in the same spot. There are some things that I felt they changed with the map that felt like that, but it's in the same spot. It's just that there's a lot more of the Necluda area, the rainforest, that you would have to explore if you do the story the right way, or the intended way, which I did not. Which again, we'll get there in a sec. But just the changes that they made were mostly to highlight the evolution of this world and like the rebuilding of Hyrule in a way that I didn't expect. I didn't expect to come out of Tears of the Kingdom thinking about how we always knew Breath of the Wild was a game that had a focus on solitude, because there's only really like 3 towns, everything's destroyed. It's the usual Zelda thing, because there's only 3 towns in any Zelda game. But that there's just this, you are fixing the mistake you made, the failure you had in the past, and that's it. That's the whole game. And then for Tears of the Kingdom to have the widest, most interesting cast this side of Majora's Mask really caught me off guard. Because when we were doing side quests, and Chris, I want to throw this to you, but when we were doing side quests in Breath of the Wild, you didn't beat the game in Breath of the Wild to begin with, because you kind of fell out of it, and that's totally fine. But did you have the same feeling that I think Trav and I both would say that we had, where we started doing side quests and getting stuck and engrossed in them because of the dialogue you get as a result, and because of that inherent feeling of I want to help people that you maybe didn't get in Breath of the Wild?
I would say so. Tears of the Kingdom is interesting because to me it kind of retroactively made me appreciate that stuff in Breath of the Wild more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like at the time, obviously I didn't really have anything against it, but it's kind of cool that Tears of the Kingdom does have this other end of that spectrum, so that they kind of make you appreciate each other more in an interesting way when you really sit down to think about it. But yeah, my favorite thing I ever did in Breath of the Wild was Terrytown. Like, to me, that was like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Was like gathering all the resources to build that up. So in this game, it kind of captures that feeling more often and more widely around the map, where you are just helping people all over the place. You do help rebuild another town here. Lurelin?
Yeah. The one that they didn't use at all in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and now it gets a little focus, and it's a little simple, right? It's put thing in hole 4 times, basically, but it's fun. Like, I feel good.
I don't think I did that quest.
Oh, you didn't?
You didn't hear every character?
I fought off the pirates, but that was it.
Okay, I was going to say, if you didn't hear every character in the goddamn game talking about pirates, I don't...
No, I heard about it. Just like,
yeah,
I fought off the pirates. The one dude that built me a house in the last game was like, "Oh my god, you did it! Let's go rebuild." And then that's the last I heard of them.
Yeah,
he does say, "Bring me 15 logs," which can seem like I don't want to do that right now at first.
Yeah,
wait, like logs, not
like
just
logs.
wood?
Yeah, like you have to go up the hill
logs
and stick them all together and throw them down the mountain.
And he's like, I don't want any from here. I want them from another forest. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Well, because he didn't want them from there
game.
Because they were what were they called? The palm trees, and he didn't want palm tree wood. He wanted like lumber from like an actual, coniferous tree or whatever.
Give me a lumber, man.
But I would say so. Like the dialogue, especially, it's a little wordy sometimes. Maybe like people like to say a lot. And you will hear a lot of the same things over and over, like that Whirlwind Village example. Like everywhere you go, someone is displaced from Whirlwind Village, or someone's like, "Oh gosh, I heard about the pirates in Whirlwind Village." I didn't even get a quest marker for Whirlwind Village until like 50 hours into the game. And I'm like, I've heard so much about this. How am I just now getting a quest marker?
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see that being like the biggest thing that would make me want to replay it, is just to get that feeling again, going around and helping everybody, just kind of being like, I feel good.
So one thing I want to ask, so I guess to give some context to this, I'll try to be as quick with it as I can. I wasn't good at video games until like maybe a couple years ago, where I basically saw all text in games as optional. So I barely remember any of the NPC dialogue outside of like main story shit that I was invested in Breath of the Wild. But this time I'm reading and talking to everybody. Like, I just had that awakening where I'm like, oh, maybe reading is cool, actually. I think it was playing the original Fallout that got me to learn how to read.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to everyone, I'm reading everything, and I'm not entirely sure if it's like the Breath of the Wild was just kind of like not as interesting in that regard. And I'm not crazy or stupid, sorry. Or if I'm just like actually reading this time and realizing how cool the story is.
It was intentionally so in Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
And that's kind of the thing I was going to hit on before we move on, was one of the things that really threw me off that I didn't expect is when you hear some of the discussion online, everyone says, well, this completely invalidates Breath of the Wild. There's no reason to ever play that game again. And I actually disagree, because I think that we don't appreciate Tears of the Kingdom without the Breath of the Wild before it, because that game is so... there's a verticality to Breath of the Wild that's insane. That climbing everything and struggling through it manually and having to do it slowly on your own, and this game takes that approach, and there's more verticality now, but there's a level of horizontal focus to the exploration instead of vertical, because they do give you the ability to just jump through mountains if you want to. They give you the ability to just jump from the sky if you want
literally
to.
Jump through them. That's so cool.
They give you the whole vehicle system, which is just absolutely wild that exists whatsoever. The way that they put all that together. They give you the ability to do the same level of the same kind of systemic exploration, where they give you these systems. They say put them together however you want, figure it out. And this isn't to the point of the dialogue. This is just the point of the games being different. That it's... I would want to go back and experience that struggle and that solitude, like you said, Chris. The only thing I wouldn't want to go back and do at current juncture is I wouldn't want to go back and do the Breath of the Wild shrines, because the Tears of the Kingdom shrines outclass them in every way, every single time. And they are incredible. Some of them are like 5 or 6 rooms. They're like little mini dungeons on top of the caves, sometimes being mini dungeons. I was playing a few days ago, also a few weeks ago. But I was playing a few days ago and talking to another CRUBCAST member, Moriarty, and he was just like, hey, what are you up to? And I said, I'm still playing Zelda. I've done every quest. I've done everything. But I'm exploring caves because they made every cave fun. They made every cave, even though they're giving you the same crappy rewards as a game like an Assassin's Creed 2, where you get money from every little secret you find and you get nothing else. This game gives you those same rewards, where it might be a shield, it might be a Lizal bow, it might be rupees. It's nothing of substance pretty much ever. Even the amiibo costumes aren't really of substance. And yet I found myself doing all of them. I have 50 of the 101 remaining bubble gems, just because I've been doing caves as I play the game, and I see a cave and I'm like, I want to go see how they made that, because the game is the reward, and I can't think of many games that do that.
I remember telling you even basically the exact same thing. I was like, I don't even care what I'm getting. It's just the experience of going through the dungeon has not worn off, or the cave. The experience of just going through a little cave has not worn off for me. I was just so engrossed in this game that even just like a stupid winding little cave that didn't really have anything special or notable to it, I was just, I feel good doing this.
Yeah.
It just never wore off for me.
You said dungeon. I want to jump to dungeons in a second. But there's a cave that they use. It was one of the last ones I did. There's a quest in Hebra in the mountains in the top left, where there's a character that you walk up to and they're like, oh, our snowboarding master disappeared in the mountains somewhere. We can't find her. And so you go and you find her, and she's in a cave, and it's she's in the entrance of the cave. She says, meet me, go find me. I'm going to reward you somehow. And then there's a whole like hallway down the cave that just goes completely straight and slightly tilted downward. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting that they just have a cave cutting through the mountain. What I didn't expect, and this is the one that got me most recently because it was so close to the time of recording that we're currently doing. That cave is the shortcut for the snowboard race. Moments later, when you do the snowboard challenges, you don't really get anything for doing the snowboard challenges. It's just like a money or a shield or whatever. But like if you don't get her target time in the second one on the expert course, she's like, oh, I wonder if that cave. No, I could never tell someone something so dangerous. And I was like, oh, you motherfuckers. You made an SSX secret hidden snowboard cave that you just speed through. And it's so cool because they don't like give you like little like slalom flags that you have to go through on this snowboarding race. It's just like get to the end. So there's like several different pathways you could take. It was incredible.
Interesting.
But you mentioned dungeons, and that's going to get us probably into the story on top of the dungeons themselves, but we'll talk play order first. I did the Zora dungeon first, even though they told you to do the Rito dungeon first. It's very clear this time around they want you to do the dungeons in a set order. They kind of had that in Breath of the Wild, but this one's more so. And they tell you to do
I didn't realize that until like I beat the second one.
Yeah. It's when Purah tells you like, yeah, go to the Rito area. I hear about them first, but there's 4 that you need to help. But the Rito one, go to the fucking Rito one.
Yeah.
And so I went to the Zora dungeon. I did that dungeon. I want to say after this actually, but I had gotten to the Zora quest line, and then I started exploring, just doing Breath of the Wild, exploration things. And I do mean Breath of the Wild, but I did all of the little story cutscene rewind flashback thingies, which we'll talk about. But the moment that sticks the most to me with with Tears of the Kingdom, is that I went and saw like the floating islands in the Hebra Mountains, which lead to the Wind Temple. And I saw that and said, I'm going to go do that. I don't know what that is up there, but I want to see what it is, and I want to go explore those super cool, super high in the air islands. And I didn't have any cold gear, so I'm just like constantly shivering by the time I get higher up in the air where it's like super cold, because I had like the first set of pants they give you on the tutorial where it's like you have a little bit of cold resistance. But I spent an hour, maybe 2 hours, manually working my way up that with not a ton of gear, not a ton of Zonite or Zonite charges to get like higher up with the help of the game's own systems. I just, with base stats essentially, went all the way up, and then somehow, even though I guess you're not supposed to, clearly, I got high enough in the air that I then jumped down into the Wind Temple, because I see the giant flying ship that is the Wind Temple, and that is the moment that I think of first now when I think Tears of the Kingdom, is that exploration of getting up there and like fighting and struggling and dying and reloading my save, and then that moment of, it says Wind Temple, and I'm like, holy shit, it's a dungeon. We knew there were dungeons, but it's a dungeon. It's the Wind Temple. It's a giant flying ship, and it's just that experience of flying into the eye of a storm is the first thing I think of now when I think of the magic that game provides.
So you haven't talked to any Rito villagers at that point, right?
No.
Like, for you, this was literally just like, why is there a ship in here?
Yeah.
That's interesting, because just real quick, I went through it the right way, and all the Rito villagers are like, oh, there's like a ship up in the sky, and I was like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
I envy your experience for that, because that must have been so much crazier.
Yeah, and so I got there.
That's really cool. Sorry, I'll let you finish your thought.
So I got there, and the second thought that I have when I think of Tears of the Kingdom is the fact that I got into that dungeon, went to activate the gate that like you use to start the dungeon, and it just gave me a red, you can't do this. I didn't know what that meant at the time. And every other time you do something that the game is like, you can't do this, it will either tell you immediately because there's a giant boss behind you fighting you, so you kind of know right away, or it'll do the thing that even Breath of the Wild did, where it'll say, like, you don't have access to this, or like the little text that pops up in some of the shrines, or at the end of every shrine, even. It didn't do that. So that's my only conflict with Tears of the Kingdom, is that I had this moment of complete freedom and organic discovery. And it was one of the most rewarding things I've done in a long, long time in any video game. Followed immediately by stumbling around, not knowing what to do and having to Google it, and then finding out that I can't do it without Tulin. Because I didn't have any characters with me at this point. I didn't do a dungeon up at this point. So I didn't know that you needed the character as the dungeon item, because that is how the Tears of the Kingdom dungeons work, is the dungeon item is the character you bring with you, which is an interesting way to handle it.
Yeah, because how did Breath of the Wild do it? It was like every shrine kind of just favored one of the rune abilities or something like that?
Generally, it was that, and then it was just also that like they were all solvable no matter what you had done up until that point.
Yeah.
And because it was a cinematic experience getting into them, usually there was like some weird, really cool water fight, or you're shooting arrows at the giant camel that none of them exist in this game. So where do they go?
No, they become hats.
They were. I think they were already hats in Breath of the Wild that you could get.
Yeah, I think they were.
But this is completely off the path here before we talk about the dungeons. There's so much of Breath of the Wild that they don't even acknowledge in this game, and that throws me off. We'll try and come back to that. But dungeons, I really enjoyed these dungeons, even though they were maybe a half step between like a traditional Zelda 3D dungeon and what Breath of the Wild had. What did you guys think?
I have some complicated thoughts, so Chris, if you want to go first.
I think I'm in a similar boat, because I would say I enjoyed them more than the Breath of the Wild dungeons. I think I did all 4 in Breath of the Wild. Like, I mostly just didn't finish it because I didn't want it to end. It was like a weird, like, I'll keep this to the side just if I ever need it kind of deal.
Yeah.
But, you know, I would say they rank on the low end of Zelda dungeons, but, like, especially with the Rito one, I really liked the spectacle of getting to the dungeon and then doing the dungeon. Like, especially the music builds as you work your way through all of the climbing kind of platforms. But there's some that, like, I felt like I was kind of just getting, well, there's only a few. I kind of felt like I was just getting started with, like, the water temple, right? Like, I was just finally starting to be like, oh, okay, I can see where you can take this, and then it's over. You fight the boss, and then you leave. I'm like, man, I wanted my Super Mario Sunshine Zelda dungeon, and, like, I kind of got it, but I was left feeling like I did, like, the first half of the dungeon, right? And I had that same feeling with the Gerudo one. So it's like really a weird... That one was really
quick.
That was the first one I did, and I think it gave me a weird idea of what to expect from the dungeons.
It's cool getting to it.
I could see that.
But then, like, I did it in, like, 15, 20 minutes. Like, it was nothing.
I really liked, like you said, I liked the story around it. I liked the mission, but the dungeon itself I thought was kind of mid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that they used the mirror shield only then and never again.
Oh my god, yeah, I got so excited at the idea of using the mirror shield.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you going to say, Chris?
It's a weird thing. Like, I don't know where I land on this, because I feel like they designed it this way because it is this huge world, and obviously they always want you to see something new and go off and do it, right? So I can see why they wouldn't want to lock someone into a dungeon. Well, you can always teleport out, I guess, so why actually... No, I'm just processing this thought. But, like, you would want to keep it short so that you don't feel like you're being taken away from the world for too long, I guess would be the intention, right? But I guess I just wanted the opposite of what they maybe wanted in designing it, where I kind of wanted these weird off places to just lose myself in for like a couple hours and be like, man, what the hell do I do here, right?
And that's one of the struggles that these games do have, is that there's no real way to give a substantial reward for doing a secondary room in a dungeon, because it's just going to be money or arrows. Like, the only thing you can do is put like armor there, but they really didn't add more than 4 pieces of armor in this game from Breath of the Wild. Like, that's the part where this is Breath of the Wild 2. It's just the same armor sets, the same effects, more or less. It's interesting, to say the least.
For someone that didn't get a lot, that's great for me. I'm like, oh, this is all cool. But yeah. It's weird because, like, you mentioned the shrines are really good. And, like, they obviously still have the chops to make great Zelda dungeons. You know, that's absolutely not in question. Some of those shrines are so much fun. And whether that's you doing them as intended or finding some weird out of the realm of thought solution to get through it. So I don't know. It's a thing where, like, I think I'll remember them all. I remember, I guess mostly because I associated with, like, the plight or the problem of the associated thing, right? Like, the Zora's water is dirty, the Ritos are snowed in. Like, I thought it was cool, and I felt good solving those issues. So I think I'll always remember that stuff. But in 6 months, it'll be really hard to remember anything other than, like, Gerudo being hallways, basically.
I just want to say...
that thing felt like hallways.
I just want to say, the whole thing about the Rito just being cold as their plight is, like, so weak, because the Gorons are, like, brainwashed. The Gerudo are getting attacked by zombies, and they can't live in their homes anymore because there's a giant sandstorm caused by the Gibdo. The Zora are slowly being murdered by mud. And then the Rito are like, yeah, it's a little cold.
Oh, we got to go hunt for food.
But it's a little cold in the cold area. Like, one of the coolest things about that I did the Gerudo dungeon last. One of the coolest things to me was I got to that area and I kind of explored it briefly, but it was like, you need both hot and cold gear here because it's just going to rapidly switch temperatures depending on where you are, what time of day it is, and we're just going to make you suffer through this area. And it was such a unique challenge for such a big area that doesn't actually have a lot in it. Also, there's like 4 shrines in the whole Gerudo Desert, which I'm cool with because the Breath of the Wild had a good number of them. But for the Rito area to just be where cold in the area where they give you cold gear. I don't know. That one goes like, man, you could have done a little more at that. Trav, what were your thoughts on the dungeons? Because we didn't get to you on that.
No, you're good. So I really feel like outside of the new bosses, which are really good in my opinion.
Bosses are really good, yeah.
The bosses are probably the highlights of the dungeons for me. But until then, they really just felt like Breath of the Wild dungeons again. the Divine Beasts. Yeah. They felt like the Divine Beasts again, but with a facelift.
I don't know that I agree with that.
And like, I mean, you're not going into the map to adjust them, which I actually did kind of like. But I mean, the only one that really like stood out to me that I really liked, that felt like the good parts of a standard Zelda dungeon, was the fire dungeon.
Yeah,
I really liked that one.
I think maybe my least favorite, funnily.
Oh, that's
because I saw what they wanted you to do, and I'm like, but this is Tears of the Kingdom. I'm just not going to do that. Like, you give me the ability to not do that, and I appreciate that, but I'm not going to do it the way you want me to.
See, I was going to jump in and.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to jump in real quick. The thing I appreciate the most about these over the Divine Beast actually is that when you got into a Divine Beast, you couldn't climb up everything, right? Like, things were kind of taken away from you ability-wise. I like that these didn't really have restriction. You still had the freedom to do whatever you needed to do. I cheesed the fire temple. I didn't do the last bit the way they wanted. I just climbed up the area behind the final thing you need to fall through, and I just kind of swooped in and worked it out from there.
So that was one thing that I think I just did fundamentally different from you guys. I was going to bring this up earlier, and then I totally forgot.
I think you did it correctly.
I am so in my playthrough, whenever I get to a shrine, a dungeon, even like an Octorok, not Octorok, Jesus, Korok puzzle. I am actively making an effort to not use anything in my inventory, and I'm just using what that area is providing me. Like, I'm doing probably exactly what they don't want me to do.
Interesting.
But I also want to see like just that curious part of my mind that I'm usually taking advantage of for like writing my YouTube content. I'm like, okay, what is the game giving me that, say, a player stumbling upon this wouldn't have? Like, how are they? What's their safety net here? How are they expecting me to do this without 1,000 fucking bokoblin guts in my inventory? And that made them really interesting to me, especially the fire dungeon, because it's like, okay, there's I see these puzzles and I'm dissecting them in my mind in ways that I could have totally just skipped over, I feel like. But I made an effort not to. And that's also been fun with the shrines. Like the one where you need to scoop one of the balls out of the spinning thing.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'd say that's interesting because the only time I did something outside of the bounds of what the game gave me, because I'm a very boring video game player, was I had more stamina for the fire dungeon, and that's how I climbed up and came in, right? Outside of that, I almost always did what the game gave me. I never really, like, my Zonai page in the inventory, I think I went into that thing like twice, which makes me incredibly boring. But for the most part, I did just what was in front of me. So
I know my perspective is I didn't use any of like the bokoblin guts or I didn't use any Keese eyes to like have homing arrows until I fought the Gleox. Yeah.
I have a question. Bokoblin guts have been mentioned twice now. Did they do something?
No,
that was just an example.
Because you mentioned the Keese thing, which did have like a really useful thing. Yeah. So I was like, what did I miss?
I think that the guts exist only for elixirs
and armor upgrades.
And ingredients for armor upgrades. That's right.
But
I forgot about elixirs.
I pretty much didn't use any of the the items you pick up or anything. A lot of the time later in the game, I'll say that I did, like, if I had some Zonai capsules, I'd be like, I'm gonna make a rocket shield and I'm gonna do that. Or especially, I will say later in the game, I stuck 2 springs together and saved that in my favorites for auto build. Because you can do that in this game. And so then I had 2 springs, which was equivalent to 1 rocket, which is harder to come by unless you go out of your way to buy a bunch. And
you made your own Rivali scale, is what I'm hearing.
Essentially. And so I what I did in the dungeons was within the scope of what they gave me, I was like, I'm gonna do this my own way. So whether it was I chain together 3 minecarts and then stand on them and jump through the ceiling, or anything of that sort, that's more what I did. And I don't think I really did anything to break any of the other dungeons either, because the Rito ones there's not really anything to break.
There's nothing to break there.
Yeah. The way that I played the game in general, though, was like, how can I break this with the stuff that I have nearby, generally? Which is what made me sad that the one item that you can take out of a shrine, but they didn't make into a Zonai capsule, are the water floaties. There's a couple, 1 or 2 max shrines that have these, like, a yellow inflatable ball and a yellow, like, styrofoam platform that float on water. And the whole thing is that if you grab it with your grab ability, hold it underwater, and then let go, the pressure of it wanting to be buoyant will shoot it up into the air. And I was like, man, that's going to be so cool to mess around with in any water area later in the game. Found out near the end of the game, I realized, wait, I haven't seen that ever again. And you can take them out because of auto build, because you can save things. So I have in my auto build save now the big yellow ball and the yellow platform attached to a single pepper or a single, like, bright seed, just to fuck around with them.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where then the game director came out like a week after the game came out. It's like, yeah, we still have a lot of ideas for the next one. That's the exact kind of thing where I'm like, man, they didn't even touch that. There's still so much. They could probably make like a dozen shrines just around the floaty things. You know what I mean? It's
so cool because I did was
put one of those on your shield and you just like you okay, so like imagine you put one on your shield, jump from the sky island, shield surf right before you land, go down, sink into the water, die, launch out.
See, so my thing is the one thing I would want from the floaties in a future Zelda is I want you to have actual water swimming, because you have only surface water still. You don't have going underwater. That's the next thing they probably have to do or can do, is that they can explore making everything a water temple and having underwater caves and stuff. Especially because they'll give you an ability to breathe forever somewhere in the game. But with the floaties, what I did was I went to the highest area in the game, took out a floaty, attached it to the there's the bridge schematic that you can find. So it's a bunch of concrete platforms that form a bridge. And I just stuck the floaties to that because I was like, that's going to sink. The floaties are going to want to float. I want to see the physics of how deep it'll go down and then how much it'll come back up. And so then I jumped off the highest thing. I also had a little steering wheel so I wouldn't fall off. But, as you hit the water, you fall off, obviously.
Right.
But anyway, all that's neither here nor there. This game's good. I guess we've hit on dungeons. We've hit on shrines very briefly. A lot of it is just us saying, this is very good. Here's some things we want more of. But let's go into the story. And this is a thing that I want to broach to both the audience and to you guys, is a statement that I don't know that either of you are super deep into Zelda enough to answer. But with regard to the Tears of the Kingdom story, I am of the belief that Breath of the Wild was not a reboot, but that Tears of the Kingdom, its sequel, is.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
If it isn't meaning to be, it sure does kind of act like one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think especially with how they handled Ganon, that is especially the case. Because I was waiting for that reveal of like how are they going to tie Ganon into Calamity Ganon into Ganondorf's story, and they don't.
Well, and that goes back into the thing about how they never acknowledge Calamity more than once in a random side quest where you teach kids.
Yeah.
They never acknowledge the Calamity event. They never acknowledge the Divine Beasts. They never acknowledge why all of the other ancient sages have the masks on, other than we didn't want to design them.
Yeah.
Like, why do they have the Va Rudo Va with the other ones, all the Divine Beast helmets.
I know what you mean.
Because
I don't remember their names.
Well, because now I'm thinking about it for the first time. I didn't think about this. Let's jump back. With the way that they tell this game's story is it's the stuff you see in the trailer for those that maybe haven't consumed the story in full yet, where you see that they go down into a cave, Zelda gets knocked into the abyss and disappears somehow. Ganondorf is back, the Master Sword breaks, Link loses his arm and then finds out that his arm is now Rauru's arm, the Sage of Light, and the original King of Hyrule is now what we find out, and also he's a furry goat. And over the course of the game, there are a couple things that they do. There's like an actual more dedicated story this time around, sort of, where they tell you by way of Purah and by way of building Lookout Landing as this community that grows as you help each community. They all band together and say, Link, we're with you. They don't really ever do anything, but that it's there. It's a thing. And I like that. But you go and you do all 4 dungeons, and then in all 4 dungeons, you just hear each of them explain that in the past, Rauru fought Ganondorf, and he lost, and then he had one idea, and he did the idea, and that's it. Also, there's another sage that looks like Zelda. We're not going to explain why. And that's all 4 dungeons story. Is just that. It's every single time. It's identical. They all say come a lot. It's weird.
They do.
Yeah.
And then it's only when you finish all 4 dungeons, and I'll give credit to specifically the Gerudo Temple and the Goron Temple, that those bring the Zelda thing into picture more, because those have Zelda walking around and she's like and the characters are like, oh look, that's Zelda, we gotta go stop her because she's walking into the desert, or she's walking into the temple. Her
AirPods are in.
Yeah.
She can't hear them.
And they don't do that with either of the other 2 dungeons, so that threw me off, because I did the whole story I did the 2 dungeons that I did in Zora and Rito, then I did all the story, then I did the last 2, and I'm talking all the story. I'm talking the 5th dungeon too, because I stumbled into that. And it's only in the 5th dungeon, which is a complete secret. You only find out about it because once you finish the first 4, they're like, hey, what about that Ring Ruins? And go to Hyrule Castle, and it's Zelda's Phantom Ganon and all this stuff. And that's all cool. I like how that's done. But then they just kind of like, the reason that Ring Ruin exists isn't really that significant. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, they really do a lot to keep you from that, even if you do the thing you're ultimately meant to do, which is swarp into it with the Ascend power, there's nothing you can glean from that the game doesn't have to give you later. So I don't know why they're so adamant about stopping you from going to it.
Yeah.
But it's built up as a big thing, and I was like, is that going to become a dungeon or something? Is it going to shift around in the air and reshape itself? No, you go into it for 3 seconds and leave, and then that's it. I'm like, why'd you block me from this?
You find
it felt like
binoculars that lead you to the dungeon.
Yeah, it's not even binoculars for those that maybe don't know. It's a piece of text that says there's a 5th sage, which if you've done anything else in this game, you already know. And that's the thing that throws me off, and that goes back to the weird thing I have with the first moment of the Wind Temple followed by the game holding your hand and not telling you it's holding your hand, is they give you the ability, just like in Breath of the Wild, to go and find the flashbacks by way of finding specific points on the map. But once you start that quest, they tell you exactly where all of them are. And they tell you just got to find a specific tier in the giant glyph that is now suddenly on the map. That wasn't there in the previous game, but that's because the weird Rauru
magic
stuff.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, anyway, that part's fine, but once I saw that was a thing, I'm like, I want to consume this story. I want to know why Zelda's in the past. I want to know why we gave her the Master Sword suddenly at one point. What's up with that dragon? All that stuff.
I want to know more about Rauru, especially.
Yeah, I want to know about Rauru. I want to know how this ties into the other Zelda games, because I really, really like the lore of Zelda. I'm not like a timeline snob, but I like seeing how they relate and how they retell stories and how they cycle and all that stuff. And
yeah, that's cool.
What threw me off is that then they don't give you story in the main story. They make you go and you do the dungeons, that's the first main quest. Then they're like, go find the glyphs maybe, we don't care. Or go find the 5th dungeon, we don't care. And then you do those things. And then like there's the Korok Forest is a whole area that like you're supposed to technically go there because it's like you think the Master Sword will be there, but like you know it's not going to be there. So like they make that into a thing, but I kind of like that was a thing because that's the first time I fought Phantom Ganon and it scared me. Because I found that early because I was like, what's over here, you know? But I
see.
Anyway, the point of it is that I'm kind of conflicted with how they tell this game's story, because I feel like you could have done a Breath of the Wild style piece it together yourself as you find things out and as you explore the world story without completely stopping story progress for the first chunk of the main story, even if you do the glyphs and you find the flashbacks throughout your own exploration. Because that's what I did. I was like, once I had done 1 or 2 dungeons, I was like, I want to see what the story is, because I know that there's something with Zelda. She's gotten thrown into the past for some reason. I want to see what the lore is there. And very briefly, the lore is that she gets thrown back to meet the first king of Hyrule, Rauru, and his wife Sonia, and that meeting between the Zonai species and the humans, the Hylian species, is what leads to pointy ear Hylians that we now know. And that's how the kingdom is established and all of this stuff, which I liked in terms of lore, but then I question how that relates to the other Zelda games that they do say are part of this world. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Fi exists. Fi being the Skyward Sword, the spirit of the Master Sword. She glows when Zelda talks to her, and Zelda refers to the Master Sword as she, as Fi, not directly as Fi, but like it's very like they very clearly had Skyward Sword to Breath of the Wild touches going on here, because Skyward Sword's the first one, Breath of the Wild's the end of the timeline. So then, after they've unified the timelines and said none of it matters, it's all so far in the past that it doesn't matter, for them to tell the story they did in Tears of the Kingdom, where they go and say, this is the first king of Hyrule, and there's a lot of stuff that almost conflicts with a Skyward Sword. The one game that we know is canon to this game. The rest of them are like, on paper, just legends, but that is the one where we know how Hyrule was founded, and then they have a time loop that doesn't work with every other Zelda game. That's what fucks me up.
There must be 2 Ganondorfs.
Yeah, because
for one thing.
Yeah, because there's only ever been technically 1 Ganondorf. If you count 4 Swords Adventures, there could have been 2, but they may have just revived the one. But every Ganondorf you've seen is the one. So if you take this game at face value as this is after Breath of the Wild, which is after every other game, that means that Ganondorf was there before Demise, who's the Skyward Sword villain, and has been under the earth forever. Yeah. And that there's always been a second Ganondorf down there, period. Which doesn't really make a lot of sense. Because the whole thing about the first Skyward Sword is that's the first reincarnation of Zelda being Hylia, literally God. So there's a lot of weird shit, and I guess I'm just conflicted, but I don't want to keep rambling about it. I want to hear what you guys think first.
So I have a thought, but it kind of all hinges on one thing.
Okay.
Before we see Zelda fall into the pit and then is sent back in time, all that, do we get a good look at the light dragon before that event?
They show the light dragon as you come out of the sky, I believe.
It flies by you like before you do the jump down to the world. Yeah.
And that's the first time they show it. So if you consider the underground, if you consider the underground like Termina almost, where it's like there's that realm between Hyrule and Termina where like it's neither.
A little funky.
Then you could say the time loop begins at the very moment that Zelda's thrown into the past. Because
that's what I was about to say. Like, what if that's their explanation, that the second Zelda is thrown into the past, we're suddenly in that new timeline, but then that still wouldn't explain Ganon and everything, now that I think about it, because they find Ganon with Rauru's arm attached.
Yeah, and
there has to be 2, or you have to disregard what the game is telling you and play with it, where they say Rauru is the first king of Hyrule. Maybe it's been so long that all of that is forgotten, and that this is like a new first king of Hyrule. And you can maybe start to kind of make it work that way, but that takes a lot of work on your part for something that I don't think they meant.
I legitimately don't think that they even bothered to think about it.
So here's my thing. I think what you said, Chris, is that's what I realized earlier when I said, there's something I hadn't thought of, is that maybe this is so far ahead in the future that it is still in the same way that we see the Breath of the Wild timeline, universe, whatever, being so far removed that every other Zelda is a legend. Skyward Sword is the only one they actually directly say, hey, this is one that, like, Fi is here. But that somehow over the course of somewhere post Twilight Princess, post that era of the games, post Four Swords Adventures, that maybe a fucking asteroid hits or something, and that they just, like, there is a new Hyrule that's founded, and that Rauru is then that, and that's why his name is Rauru, is because he's based on the previous Raurus, and he's not the one that the other Raurus are based off of in previous games.
I didn't consider that.
But there's also the fact that like, there's the whole Sonya thing, where Sonya is, like, it's those two mating is what births the race that we know as humans, or as Hylians again.
Yeah.
So to go back, for those that maybe are very lost in the weeds in what we're saying here, Zelda gets thrown back into the past. She meets Rauru, the first king of Hyrule, and his wife Sonya, and she has to figure out how to get the Master Sword back to Link in the present, because she suddenly has the Master Sword because it got phased between the past and the future somehow at a time portal of some sort.
Yeah, it's just like you go up to the Temple of Time and it's like, hey, this is mine now, I guess.
Yeah, and so she's like, I need to help Link. This man Ganondorf is evil, just so you know. And Rauru's like, yeah, we know. And then Ganondorf starts his war against them, and Zelda is confused and not sure what to do. And there's this whole thing about how the sages now have these secret stones. They are called secret stones. I don't know why. Why are they not sacred stones?
Everyone seems to know about them. Not that secret.
But there are these, like, powerful stones that are almost like the sage's seals from the Ocarina of Time, for example, where they grant you the ability to unlock some power of some sort. So there's a Rito sage that has the power of wind. There's a lightning sage, which is a Gerudo, so on and so forth. There's also a light sage, which is Rauru, and a time sage, which is Sonya, and that's why Zelda has always had both powers. That's the implication, is that there wasn't a Hylia, I guess, in this version of the telling. But there's a thing they throw together where one of the characters tells Zelda that, out of nowhere, if you eat your secret stone, you become a dragon. And you become a dragon that loses your mind and will just roam for eternity because you're immortal. But don't do it, essentially. And as much as that's stupid anime bullshit that's really weird for Zelda standards, they play it off exceptionally well.
Oh, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
What I'm saying here is the story that they tell you via the go find the tears on the map. And you find the tears and you see these parts of the story. You do all of them, and they then have the very Zelda-looking dragon shed one more tear, and you go to that final one, again, similar to how Breath of the Wild did it, where there was one more at the very end. And you go to that cutscene, and you see that what's going on is Zelda's going to eat her secret stone because Rauru's dead. Rauru has died to try and stop and seal Ganon for now. The other sages are all hurt as fuck and, like, probably going to die soon because they're all damaged beyond repair against Ganondorf. The only thing she can do is find a way to repair the Master Sword by keeping it near her presence, because if there's a sacred presence nearby, the Master Sword absorbs that power and is strengthened by it for eternity if it's nearby.
Yeah.
So Zelda,
definitely.
Yeah. So Zelda eats her tear, grabs the Master Sword, and then it's, like, fused into her dragon head. And so you pull the Master Sword from her head later in the game, which is fucking sick.
Yeah. It's a really good moment, especially if you did the cutscenes first.
Yes. Yeah. And moral of the story is, to summarize, that the dragon you see at the start of the game is Zelda, and that Zelda has, since that moment that you see her, at least, you're in that alternate timeline or whatever they're doing where they looped it back around, to have Zelda lose her sanity and become immortal and become this dragon, which I thought was really interesting and I was almost disappointed when they didn't just keep her a dragon at the end.
Yeah, I thought that they were basically just going to be like, yeah, she's essentially brain dead.
Yeah.
Like, there's no more Zelda.
And in that case, there's so many interesting implications on the rest of the series then, because Zelda always reincarnates. There's always a Zelda. There's always multiple Zeldas even at some points. So it would have been really cool for them to say, yeah, there probably can't be another Zelda now because that Zelda's alive forever.
Yeah, she broke the cycle.
Yeah.
Away.
And that would have been a really fascinating way to undo all of the timeline shenanigans we've had in prior games. But what they do is instead, when you get to the end of the game, you go to Ganondorf, who's located under Hyrule Castle, which is really cool. You go through
Really
a whole massive fight with your allies helping you out against this horde upon horde of enemies, similar to how Skyward Sword did it, seemingly as a callback or an improvement on that. You fight Ganondorf in a fucking sick battle. That battle was so good.
Really good fight.
It's so good because he can flurry
I
rush.
love that, like, he's like using your own moves against you. And like he's switching between the 3 weapon types.
Yep.
It's so cool.
Yep, because Ganondorf's always been a master of weapons, so they give him all the abilities that he can flurry rush against you. He can counter your flurry rush with his own flurry rush. When you get to the second
Does he
phase,
parry?
He won't parry, but he'll do the dodge.
Okay.
When you get to the second phase, I'm sure we all popped huge for this. When they just go full video game to fucking
Health bar goes all the way over.
Yeah.
I love that.
You get to phase 2 of Ganondorf, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go hard now. I'm gonna go like actual demise tier. Like I have the long hair and shit." And his health bar pops up, and it just goes the whole way. It's not centered. It starts where it would have last time, and it goes to the end of the screen the whole way.
And that was probably one of my favorite moments of the game.
During that part of the fight, if he hits you with certain attacks, you lose that health forever for the rest of that fight.
Yeah.
Like not like Gloom, where you temporarily lose health. You just lose that heart.
Lose it. Yeah.
And then the thing that I should have realized, and I kind of had thought about as a possibility, but hadn't fully perceived, is that then Ganondorf eats his secret stone and becomes a dragon, because he also knows this, apparently. And so
I didn't even think of that shit. When he did that, I was like, oh, fuck, of course. Like,
So-
why wouldn't he? Yeah.
So your reward for beating Ganondorf in one of the harder fights in the series, honestly, all things considered, is this spectacle of you getting thrown into the highest part of the sky, riding on Zelda Dragon, fighting the evil Dark King Dragon of Demon King Ganondorf, and seemingly killing Ganondorf once and for all, just like you thought you killed Ganon once and for all in the last game, when his hatred was fueled into one final attack so that he would never reincarnate again. And then, surprise, he's fucking still there. But to finish this summary of the game here, I'm glad they did undo it at the end of the game, where they make Zelda turn into a human because of weird furry magic. Because that ending sequence where she's falling and they play Zelda's Lullaby, and it's this triumphant Zelda's Lullaby as you're
I just
flying,
got goosebumps thinking about it.
As you're flying through the air, going to grab her, and you grab her with the same handshake that you missed last time. So Link overcomes that failure and saves her. And fuck.
It's an exceptional moment. Like
It's
I was the same. I
probably,
was like,
right?
oh, they're just gonna turn her back to normal. And then I guess Rauru Ghost didn't think it through. Like, oh yeah, we just reincarnated our great granddaughter in the fucking sky. Let's just drop her.
Figure it out.
Like, hey, you said I always said I wanted to meet this guy. Here's your test. Go fucking save my 5 to the power of 10 granddaughter.
I'm a big fan of the contextual to the story video game prompts, and like the grab and hold or whatever the hell they said at the end. I was like, this is good. This is video game as hell.
Instead of dive, it was dive to Zelda was the one, I think is what it said.
Did you? Okay, so
did you also miss?
I missed it.
You let go. You're like, oh, I'll just push A again.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's a tense moment. I need to tap it, and then Link goes, huh, bah!
I didn't know that was a thing. Holy shit!
Yeah, it makes you redo the dive.
That's so great. I didn't think you could fail that. That's wild.
Yeah.
Because it freezes you in the air. Like you can't. Like you don't just go forever. Or I mean, you do go.
Yeah,
forever. You don't
but
just,
if you
I
let
was just
go
so
of the
absorbed.
button,
I was just like, huh.
yeah,
I need to do that now.
I didn't think to hold, even though it says in like red parentheses hold. Like I didn't.
Yeah, that whole ending sequence is maybe the best sequence that Zelda's ever had. I think. because it's just I don't care what the story implications are at that point. As much as we're talking about story and how I'm like, how does this make sense with prior games? How does this all work? Because the only thing I can think at this point is that this is a new Hyrule because they don't acknowledge the Triforce still.
Yeah.
They don't mention it at all.
It's not a thing.
It's just a piece of iconography in the castle. So maybe this is so far removed.
I think the closest we get to it is the hot spring, not hot spring, the spring
of
wisdom
courage, power,
statues
wisdom.
of they have the names and that's it.
Yeah. But like maybe to close off the deep lore implications that no one cares about, maybe what it is like similar to what we were kind of saying, Chris, where they set it up in such a way that this is so far removed from every past Zelda game that there was a new kingdom of Hyrule that's founded with furry Rauru. And that explains why the Rito are there and that the Rito weren't there in half of the timelines to begin with. And that explains why the Triforce isn't acknowledged, and instead it's weird secret stones, which are just tears, which were also used in Twilight Princess, so that kind of makes sense, I guess. I think it's a reboot. I think that they're just like, look, it doesn't matter anymore. This is the lore. Yeah. And that's that. And I'm fine with that. The part that bothered me was that they blatantly retconned stuff from Breath of the Wild.
Or just pushed it so far to the side and acted like it didn't really even matter at a point. Like, it's so strange.
There's the Purapad, which in Breath of the Wild was the Sheikah Slate. And they never say, oh yeah, I took the Sheikah Slate and I made it better. It's the Sheikah Slate 2, Like, they don't say that. There's one Guardian in the entire game, which is in the same spot it was in the Akala Tech Lab.
I want to say that they did acknowledge that.
Maybe I missed it. If I did, then yeah.
Okay. I cannot remember for the life of me if it's like someone told me this or if I read it in the game. So take this with a big grain of MSG. But I thought that what they said was like after Calamity Ganon fell, or like after the Calamity event. I want to say they just called it like after what happened. It was like all the ancient technology just shut down, including the Sheikah Slate, so that she made her repairs. It work.
If that's the case, they could have said it more than once, because they say everything else 17 times. Like I'm fine with that being the excuse, because like that's the other thing is like I understand that the implication is that they probably tore the Divine Beast down because they were like, maybe we shouldn't have these, but like it goes deeper than just those two things though, because like at the end of Breath of the Wild, Zelda's like, there's something weird going on with Va Ruto. Let's go check it out. Never acknowledged again. And if they could have just said, oh yeah, but that was that it shut down and that like it disappeared or whatever. It's weird. Which would make sense. You would want to dismantle that one because Link's girlfriend, her fucking spirit corpse is in there forever. You maybe want to not have that be a thing anymore.
That's right. He was a fish fucker. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he fucks fish. And
I was waiting for them to Majora's Mask it and basically be like, oh, the four giants just went to the far ends of the earth or some weird nonsense. They're not here now.
That would be fine. And again, it goes back to like the weird, why did all of the past sages have those heads when those heads only existed as of 10,000 years ago in the initial war?
Yeah.
Which was against Ganon, not Ganondorf. So, what? But
they modeled the beast after the masks they happened to wear at the back.
Yeah, I mean, the Zora one has an elephant.
Yeah. How do they know what elephants are? What I was going to say, though, what throws me off is if the Sheikah thing is that, then I'm happy with that. I just missed it. That's kind of what I figured they would probably have said, but I thought they would say it more than once, considering there's a quest where they acknowledge Breath of the Wild by having you teach children about it. But then also there are so many characters in Tears of the Kingdom that just you've met in Breath of the Wild. Like most of the side quest characters are like from the previous game. The two Misko's treasure hunters that you find early on, they also, I forgot, because the Breath of the Wild side quest word was kind of there, that they're the ones that give you the same Misko's quest in Breath of the Wild. And they see you, and it's not like, oh, you're Link, you're the one that everyone knows saved the world, because everybody else you talk to is like, we know you, you're Link, we love you. And I like that also, by the way. But it's weird that some characters selectively don't remember Link, or they imply that you didn't see them in Breath of the Wild. So like some quests they just say didn't happen, I guess. So like Misko's quest or the two people that are looking for the Mushroom Cave. They were in Breath of the Wild. We talked
the other night, the Laurelin Village builder, the very what's his name? Bolson?
Flamboyant?
Yeah, Flamboyant.
Bolson might be, if it's not Bolson, then another one's Bolson.
Yeah, he just has no
Bolson
memory
is
of
in
you.
Terrytown, I think.
That's how.
Because
Gotcha.
he has Sun in his name, so he's automatically there.
No, there's sons
Yeah.
everywhere in this game.
Addison.
Yeah, Addison's the one.
Oh, you're
yeah.
well. No. I mean, he's the minion of the
Yeah.
Terrytown conglomerate. So
Yeah, but there
guy
are
is
sons.
also-
There are sons everywhere. There are some in Rito Village.
you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah, but with him, I was like, man, I helped you build that town. You don't remember me? Okay.
Yeah, it's like I get that you can't just have it be like you have to kind of play like maybe you didn't do those side quests in that game, and I get that, but I don't know. You could just play it as if you did that way instead.
Because Terrytown's built, especially
Yeah.
in that specific case.
Yeah.
Very strange. There's a lot
Anyway.
of stuff like that where it's like, I'll probably reasonably accept whatever explanation they do eventually give. If they do, I just want them to give it to be like, why did you do things this way?
Yeah.
Like, why is the Divine Beast thing just suddenly gone, right?
Yeah.
If you come up with an answer, I'll probably go, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's just
But-
why is it not in the game? Like why? Like it's literally a single piece of flavor dialogue in a game with 7,000 characters that all have custom flavor dialogue for every type of weather. Because all of them are like, man, it's rainy
love
out
it.
today, and it's like, man, I love that shit. But then how do you focus on the window dressing and not the house? You know, in some cases, and
Yeah.
to circle around from all of that, it's a lot of weird, nitpicking or poking at things in this game, which, if anything, is a testament to how goddamn good this game is. That a lot of what we're going to talk about beyond it's good is here are some weird things that, in them reaching very close to, I'll say it, perfection, you notice the things that are off more. It's a thing that I said about a game like The Last of Us 2, where they went for such a high visual fidelity that when there were some uncanny valley moments, you notice them more. When the games stumble, you notice them more because they're going and trying to be such a transcendent experience that it's only natural for folks to remember and highlight this is kind of weird, but at the end of the day, this is our 70th time talking about this and our first time on camera talking about this, where we've gushed about every single facet of this game. Like, I like the Koroks in this game. I like that they made the poop bigger when you get all the Koroks. I just...
If this game
everything.
had better
Hey,
options...
can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, the poop fairy visited me.
I think it's difficult with this game. Like, it's a reflection of the way you kind of optimally play this game is just going
That's true. That's
branching
true. Actually,
around every single thing.
You know what? Hi, chat. And by chat, I mean YouTube
Hey.
comments. I'm gonna put this part in because Trav had to run real quick. Something came up, but no, it's a good point because like I've always pointed out, and people sometimes don't believe me when I do like my God of War video or my Horizon video where I say I've done everything and it's like 40 hours later. People are like, "How could you do it in 40 hours? You played on easy." I'm like, "No, I fucking didn't. I'm good at beating video games, like you said, optimally. Like the fact that I have maybe put 120 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, which is fewer than I did Breath of the Wild, and 10 hours of that was me using the duplication glitch to get all the armor upgraded.
Right.
But other than that, like I did every quest and the whole game in probably under 100 hours total, when you count time that I was sitting on the menu. Like, and that doesn't mean that I had a lesser experience for it or that I rushed through it. I read all the dialogue, except for the cutscenes where they played the same dungeon stuff. I'll level with you. I did turn my brain off for those because I knew they were the same after the first two.
Yep.
But I just I'm almost kind of sad that I play this game in such an optimized way because it doesn't lessen my experience whatsoever. But I'm like, man, I want to be like the people that have put 600 hours into this game already and they've not even done a dungeon. I want to see that experience, you know?
I'm sure now, especially with some things you see going around, right? Like, there are people who probably already put 60 or 70 hours in just fucking around with the physics and all the weapons and vehicles you can build, right? And they're like, oh, there's 100 shrines in this game. I've done maybe 30, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different ways you can play this game.
Yeah.
Especially that are all really impressive.
And valid is the other thing.
And valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's a really crazy game. Like, something I was going to say during the dungeon talk is, like, it's so cool that you can do that as a traditional Zelda dungeon, but then you have every opportunity in the world to say fuck it and just not even engage with most of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the water temple especially is so open that I'm sure there's so many crazy ways you could
That's interesting.
get around that.
the water temple I thought was one of the more, not one of the more linear ones. It's more open in like getting to the dungeon.
It's very open, like air wise, I guess I should say. It's open concept, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's true. I remember I was stuck for like 15 minutes or so on the one puzzle in the water temple where there's the spinning, I don't know what to call it. It's almost like a clock tower thing where inside there's a switch and you have to hit the switch with an arrow. But
it's going real fast.
Yes. And so I spent forever trying to figure out a way to use physics to slow that down. And I couldn't figure anything out. And that one was so cool to me. The one where you find you get the ball to float over the little dam by way of I'm probably misremembering because I did so early in the game. But there's the shit. And
you have to lower the water and get it to...
Yeah, because you have to get it over the hump of the little dam gap first and then lower the water level. Like, all that shit was really great. Or using Sidon to get through fire, which I never would have thought to do for some reason, because they don't really use it that much. Like, there's all the Yiga clan stuff we didn't touch on. Like, there's like that Yiga clan quest is so incredible. I love that quest so much. There's so much.
I feel a little bad for not engaging with that spinning thing in the water temple you mentioned more. I was just like, I'll shoot arrows until I get it. I didn't even think, like, how do I slow this down?
I think what I did at the end was I threw myself into the air with physics and then did a slow-mo arrow shot, and that's what was able to get it.
I wonder. I don't think this is the case, but I'm sitting here like, I wonder if you can ultra hand it to keep it in place for a while?
And then rewind
and
time.
Then recall to keep it there or something?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a thing.
Shit. Probably. I saw there's a video on Twitter that went viral of someone playing Devil May Cry with Zelda combat, where like it was like a boss Bokoblin threw a rock, and so he froze the rock in time, but he recalled the rock, but then jumped through it via the updraft ability,
right,
and then jumped off of it and did a bunch of arrow shots, and then it landed on the boss Bokoblin and did damage, and there's like a whole 7 million things that he's doing which are just incredible, and I'm here like I made springs.
See, that's one thing I was actually going to bring up and forgot, because I didn't really know how to quantify it. This isn't a very thought out feeling I have, but I am like, man, I wish the combat was better. But then I hear something like that and I'm like, maybe I just need to expand my horizons more with the combat, actually, because a lot of it does just seem like
very good at making me feel stupid.
Hi, Trav. Yeah, exactly. Trav. A lot of it is just like, I'm going to stun lock this thing by poking it with the long spear, or stun lock it with swinging it right. But I hear that and I'm like, that's like a whole different game.
There was that one in the water temple that you're talking about, the thing that was spinning really fast.
Yeah.
I'm not eating anything. This fork is for cosmetic purposes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's a microtransaction.
Yeah. So what I thought I had to do was like jam it, stick something in there. So what I did was I found a platform on the other side of the temple, like someplace totally far away, stuck it to a treasure chest, and was like, all right, I'm gonna jam that treasure chest in there, and it just fucking like launched that thing way out of my hand. So I'm like, all right, that's not how I'm supposed to do that, I guess.
What you said about combat, Chris, is funny, because so I've fought a lot of the Gleeok bosses. I've killed a King Gleeok. I killed the underground one, actually, the one that has like gloom.
Yeah.
Those fights are so incredible. For those, if you haven't done them, do them. Once you have enough health. But
the ice one continues to kick my ass still.
That's fair. I love all of them.
The ice one is such a bitch.
If you just have Fire Keese eyeballs, you win. Fire Keese eyeballs with a Savage Lino.
I didn't even think of that.
Fire Keese eyeballs with a Savage Lino bow that shoots 3, because then each one has a Fire Keese eyeball, and it hunts down. It tries to get all 3. It might only get 2 of them sometimes, but
that's awesome.
You just win. But I've done those, and yet Lionel's still kick my ass. Like, there was the Majora's Mask Underground Coliseum location is the one where they make you fight one Lionel,
7?
And then another Lionel, and then a harder Lionel, and then the hardest Lionel, and then another, I think 2 of the hardest Lionels. And I saw that it was Lionel's, and I was like, of course the Majora's Mask one is going to be the one they're going to hide behind the hardest stuff. Of course. And so I pulled out my ancient arrows and I just eviscerated them out of existence, because I was like, no, I'm not doing this. This is the last item I need in this game. I'm not fucking doing this. And we haven't even talked about the sage's wills, the other power you can find, the upgrade you can find in the sky to upgrade the characters that don't really do much anyway.
I don't know what they do. I've used one. I've upgraded 2 of them. I still have no idea.
They increase the attack power of the sage, but they don't increase the effectiveness of the ability of that sage. It's kind of weird.
I found that out the hard way because I upgraded Tulin thinking it would launch me farther in the air.
That's what I tried doing too, yeah.
Instead, it just makes him kill fire Octoroks while I'm trying to get them to swallow my sword.
And he kills things faster, but it's also like they don't attack half the time, so...
Yeah, they just kind of sit there.
I don't know.
That's like
oh my god.
Things.
I need to send it to you guys. I didn't want to post it on Twitter because it's literally the final boss. I have this video on where I put cannons on the construct sage.
Okay.
And there's this video that I have of as soon as the second phase starts of Ganondorf's fight, she just walks over like right next to him and just goes and the timing of it just killed me. And I'm like, I need to share this with people, but I don't want to post final boss footage to Twitter right now.
Oh, it's so good. It's so we've already been back. This is all in Trav. I'm sure you heard. We cut a little bit out, but
hi, Sean.
To summarize, I think what it comes down to is there's so much that even with this little what was going to be cut content while Trav had to run for a second that we still kept in the video, we still haven't touched on so much. And like I said a moment ago, there's hundreds of things we've talked about that we're forgetting here that we're going to think about and say, oh shit, we didn't mention that. There's so many thoughts that just stick in my head still, that I'm still thinking about this game. And I beat it like 2 weeks ago or whatever. I stopped playing it like a week ago because I did everything. Like I was like, I need to get everything done in this game because I need it to not take over my life anymore. And I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking about things I want to do and more caves I want to explore because it's just so goddamn fun.
Yeah, this talk was bad for me because now I just want to go back and do more.
Yeah.
Like I'd kind of gotten out of my system a little bit, but now I'm like, no, I never beat the King Cleoc, there's so much I could still do.
I also forgot
Cleoc.
Cleoc. Yeah.
And
Kleenex.
I think that's probably where we'll wrap up for the day. Like I said, I'm sure there's a lot that we've missed that we want to say. Yes, Chris.
One last thing, just because we didn't touch on it. You were saying the game was almost perfect. 2 things I would change that would make this perfect for me.
Oh, yes. Future things, yeah.
When I chase for the partners, don't have them run away from me.
Yeah.
For 1.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
2, and this one's just kind of a gimme, obvious thing. Better options for like remapping controls, better camera speed, stuff like that. And then I don't think I could ever legitimately sit down and be like, I need something more for this game than what
Pretty
it is.
Pretty much the only things that I can think of that I would suggest are stuff like that, where it's like, this had an extra year in the tank where they polished it more and focus tested it more. And it's like, how did certain things get through?
Like how weird the menu system is and like attaching things and dropping things and all that stuff.
How did they not allow you to make a crafting bench or like have a crafting bench in your house or anywhere?
Make some arrows.
Where you can make arrows. Like, there's stuff like that I'm like, okay,
favoriting
better.
Items.
Oh my god, yeah, favoriting an item. That sounds so obvious.
Armor sets, favoriting a specific outfit so you can then pull it back up. So if you're in the cold, you can put on your cold outfit, but with the Korok mask on instead of having to pick things one by one.
A lot of stuff that would be nice for sure.
Yeah, and it's all the weird Nintendo accessibility stuff that and quality of life stuff as well that I'm not surprised that got missed because that is kind of the Nintendo way sometimes. They focus so much on pure fun that they get lost in the sauce, and that's fine to some extent because at the end of the day, they made maybe the best game of all time. And then they fucking said, hey, that was us just kind of like we were prepping to cook. Now we're going to cook. And they made this one. And I thought and I was afraid that it wouldn't change the game in the same way that Breath of the Wild did. And I think it changes it more. I think that Breath of the Wild changed how we perceive open world games and the ability of freedom and exploration and what makes a good quest and what makes a good side quest and dungeon and cave and all of these things. What makes a good world. And this game took that and said, what if we take everything that any game designer ever thought was possible and we just completely blow their minds and say, yeah, we're going to make an insanely polished ability to break the game, and that's just the first thing you get. That they're so confident in their world, and that it worked. There's one single time that I've used the rise up through, I can't remember the name. What's the name of that one? Why am I not Ascend, thank you. I thought it was something like Uprise or something like that, something stupid.
Updraft.
Yeah. I've had one single time that I've used Ascend where something weird happened and like it sent me back down because it would have been like a bug where I hit something in the roof. Once in 100 hours of play. I haven't seen many bugs. The bugs I've seen with this game's physics engine are the funny kind that help the game. They don't hurt the game. I'm just, what the fuck, man?
I love that video that I think it was Chris that posted where he used the Ascend and then immediately drowned in a mud pit.
I was literally just about to say, I wish I'd had that for that moment because I was getting out of there. I'm like, oh wait, I'm in the sludge, and then I drowned and died. I couldn't even move. I was like, oh, that's at least great. Funny still. You know,
that's great.
So,
any
best game
thoughts?
I played.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel.
I literally don't know what I would change from a gameplay perspective. Everything I can think of that I would do differently, like that you haven't already touched on, because like, you know, favoriting items and all that, armor set pre-definition profiles, whatever. Like all I could think of is just like, give me a new world to explore, I guess.
Yeah, you can't do this one again.
Story. Other than that, just give me this again.
Yeah.
In a new world.
Yeah. No, they can't do this Hyrule a third time, I don't think, because they've already added sky and ground. The water won't help. Like they gotta do something else with it. Even if it is more Breath of the Wild style game.
What if they flood it again like Wind Waker?
Well, there was a theory that I was reading that
it would all fall into the depths.
Well, you say that, but rivers are just walls underground. So
that's true.
You never know. But what I was going to say was I saw a theory that maybe this is part of a trilogy. That maybe they are going to go for a third one because they did 2 of the 3 colors of the sages.
What, you mean like blue and green?
Yeah.
For
yeah.
each game? Oh. Okay.
And so then there's red. And that would be like the finale of this
Calamity
trilogy.
Gloom.
And they've just don't acknowledge anything else about this game. There's a new species. Because
here's the next first king of Hyrule.
Like, hey, we know that the Sheikah, we had them go get phased out of existence at the end of the DLC for Breath of the Wild because we knew that Tears of the Kingdom was going to have the Zonai, who were going to be the plot point that the Sheikah were in Breath of the Wild anyway. So we're going to just pretend they don't exist anymore. There's going to be a new one, and it's going to be the fucking Minish. That's where this game's going next.
Oh my god.
They're going to make you small in the same map. That's how it's going to be.
You can't go big.
Now okay, wait, like that actually sounds awesome.
Times as big.
No, but it's not like you can be small. I'm saying they make you small. And the entire game is you as Tiny Link playing through the same map.
The map is 10 times bigger.
All those textures that you see at close up, oh shit. You climb leaf blades like they're mountains. You know, I'm in. Actually, yeah.
That sounds awesome. What are you saying?
Let's go. The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of
Chaos.
Crub.
Ooh.
You heard it here first.
What does Crub stand for?
You heard it here first. Here's my prediction
Crub
for the
of
DLC.
The Kingdom.
There weren't that many Sky Islands. It'll be so easy to be like, oh, more came in. Go to the extra Sky Islands.
Yeah.
They migrated.
I have no idea what they're going to do with the DLC. It's going to be wild, whatever they do. I'm excited.
They got to give us, 2 more hearts?
Well, you say that, but they didn't max out in Breath of the Wild, even with the DLC.
Yeah, they did. Pretty sure they did.
No, because they gave you 12 more shrines, and only one of them gave you a heart. Only 4 shrines in Breath of the Wild's DLC gave you the
shit. You might be right.
The thing, because you had 37 or you had 27 hearts and max stamina was the makeup in Breath of the Wild. Then they added 12 shrines, so it was like, oh, they're gonna give you the rest of them, and then they were like, ha, no, motherfucker, only 4 of these actually give you the things, so you can only get 1 more heart piece. But there'll be a dungeon, so they might do that anyway, unless they go actually nutso and they just say, hey, now you can have 50 hearts.
Sweet.
And they just give you like that.
It does what Ganon's health bar does and just goes off the screen.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
But I think that's where we're going to call this discussion for now. Let us know down below what you've thought of your time with Breath of the Wild, some of the stuff that we've inevitably missed. There's so much. Even, again, having, between the three of us, done probably 400, 500 of the Koroks and most of the game to its entirety. Let us know what you think about that. Let us know what you think about some of our theories, some of our comments, some of even our nitpicks. Because that's what most of these critiques were, is that they are nitpicks on a game that is so massive that we are literally gnats biting at its neck, and we're not even anything of substance to how big this game is and how grand it is. So send a tweet. And make sure you send this video out as a tweet to all of your friends and followers. Make sure that they tune into Crub. Make sure they subscribe to Crub. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere else you can find podcasts. And where can we find each of you guys? Chris?
You can find me on Crub. I am at MykonosFan, MyKonosFan. You'll find me.
Trav?
MICKY. Hi, you can find me at youtube.com/@thattravguy, and you can find me on Twitter @theothertravguy, because I am both of them. I'm when is this video going up?
Tomorrow.
ASAP.
I got a video on Metal Gear 2 coming soon.
Let's go. And I am again at the Golden Bolt on every platform. You can find me.
Where can we find you, Kevin?
Every platform that you can find them. Weren't you listening?
I'm fucking. Right. I hate all of you.